Dan Abbott. I'm making this video for my CAD Management class at Southern Maine Community College. This is a video to show you how you can set up to solve the problem presented in the assignment for the second version of your AutoCAD doc LSP file. This is something I want you to write yourself. I want you to use what you know about the AutoCAD command structure, because the whole purpose of this unit is to show you how an AutoCAD user can take what you know about the AutoCAD command structure and use it to create LISP programs that automate certain procedures. Some of you clearly just typed this problem into ChatGPT and ended up with convoluted code that uses expert level functions that I know are well beyond what you understand, because in some cases it's beyond what I understand. The purpose of this is not to do something that solves this without understanding it. The purpose of this is for you to understand how to create a list function using what you know about AutoCAD. So no VL functions, those are all way too advanced for anything that you'd be doing right now. No map car, no lambda, don't be constructing things with the CONS. None of that level of thing, which is what you're getting, and I've tried this in ChatGPT myself. I won't say it's expert level programming because the programs are so incredibly inefficient and convoluted that are produced that no real programmer would have done them, but they use expert level programming functions. Forget that. The purpose of this is for you to understand how to write a LISP program based on what you know. So the problem is you have the program you did at the beginning to insert a title block. I gave you very specific examples of that in the book, and so people were able to do that. Now I want you to expand on it. I did not give you an example of how to do this in the book because I want you to write this yourself. You need to create a new layout, set it current, do a page setup for the appropriate size, delete the existing viewport. This is all something where you go back and forth, you test things, it's trial and error. It takes thinking and it takes time, and that's why it's the CAD Management class and not the first class you took in AutoCAD. Those are the things you need to do. So we'll come back to this and take a look, but what I'm going to do is show you how to set up to do this. And the way to set up to do this, to do all of those things using dialog boxes to make sure you understand what the steps are, and then go back through and then use the command line version of those same commands to find out how to write this as a LISP program. So let's start with we're going to start with starting AutoCAD. So I'm going to be in AutoCAD, using AutoCAD 2024. 2025 works the same way. You should be using VLISP and not the Microsoft Visual Studio function. Mostly for a number of reasons. I think VLISP is easier to use, but it's also what I covered in the book that I wrote. So you're not going to get any help on the Microsoft Visual Studio. That was added quite a bit later than when the book was written. So we're going to start a new file. I'm going to start something with the acad.dwt. Whoops, that's not the AutoCAD. That's not the standard one, so let me do that again. So I go to new, I'm going to have to browse to find it. So that's the one I'm going to open up. Alright, now I'm just going to go through this to make sure I know how I would go through the steps for this. So the first thing it says is to make a new layout. Well, normally you just go over here and you pick that button right there to make a new layout. It comes up and says, yeah, we made a new layout. It's layout 23. Now I'm going to tell you that what you can do at the command line to make a new layout is to use a layout command. If you type layout at the command line, it opens up a command line version of this, and you can say, oh, look at that, N for new, one of the options. Let's just say we want to call this B size. Now you look down at the bottom, it creates a B size layout. Now it also we're done. It's not a persistent command, in other words. I can't type set now. We're in the command structure. I need to go back in the layout command. So I'll go back in layout, type set, give the name of the layout I just created, bang, it goes to paperspace. Now while I'm in paperspace, I might want to make sure that paperspace is active because I'm telling you to delete the viewport that's there. Well, I'm already in paperspace. Doesn't hurt anything to do it if you want to add it. Now I say erase that viewport. Erase as a command, and you have to use the command, not just the alias. And then that's the only thing in the viewport, so all. Some of you have code that you obviously did not write yourself. It has 7 or 8 lines to do that, when you can do it with 1 line of code. Just erase everything that's in there. Now, go through the next process. What is the next process? It's the page setup. Well, I'm going to start by right-clicking. I'm going to go through page setup, and I'm going to set this up the way I would through the dialog box. I'm going to say I want it to be monochrome. I told you to do DWG to PDF. That was the requirement. I'm going to pick ANSI. Now let's take ANSI expanded, B size, right there. And now that's what I'm using right now is my sheet size. So I'm going to go through here. Now the reason I'm doing that is because now when I go through a page setup, those will be the defaults, and it'll be easier for me to see what I need to use for those defaults. When I press F2, it's going to give me a listing of my commands, which means I can copy this, put it in a file like a text file, and say, alright, how do I do this? I start with the layout command. I pick new. I type a name. I go back to the layout command. I type S. This was when I was showing you couldn't do that. I go back to the layout command. I type S. I make the layout that I just created current. I type P space to make sure I'm already in paper space. So that's all I've done so far. Now, at the command line. Now, if I go back to the command line now, and I do page setup, it's going to open the dialog box. So what I need to do is put a negative page setup, because if you use a negative, it opens up the command line version. Well, I'm going to go through and accept the defaults, because this is exactly how I want to set up in my LISP program. So my default is DWG to PDF. I just accept it because it's already something I created. That's what I want for your sheet size. I want inches. I want landscape. I want no on upside down. These are all the things you're going to have to answer as you create your LISP program. So I'm just going to go through and accept every single one of these, because I know that those are the questions that are being asked, and I know that the response I want is the response I just gave. At this point then I would insert my title block, but instead I'm going to copy this entire history. I'm going to go and open up something in Notepad. I'm going to paste the history in here, and if you notice, it goes back all the way to the layout command. So now I have that to use as a reference. I'm going to write myself a command. I'm going to try it out in a new drawing. So now I'm going over here and opening up the VLISP editor. And I'll make a new file. Just move this down here. I'll make that a little bit bigger. Now open up Notepad so that I can go through and put the steps in. So now what do I have to do to create the new command? First, this is the header material at the beginning. You know what that's supposed to look like. So put your name, etc. and the date, all that stuff. So then you've got a section down here for your commands. You put the name of the command, indicate what that is supposed to do. So I'm going to call this inserts a title block after creating a layout and page setup. So that's just what it does. All right, now you know, open parenthesis, that's how you're going to start. You're going to do a defund, C colon, and then give it a name, ITB, insert title block, open and close, because if we have any variables, we'll put them in later on. Come down here and say, all right, what do I want to do first? I want to do a layout. All right, what did I have to type next? I typed layout, then I typed N. Whatever you type, in quotation marks, like that. Now you need to have the name, whatever you want that name to be. Let's say I want mine to be B size, I do that. Now I'm done with that function. But I can stay in the command function by going down below, repeating the layout command. Now I'm going to say set B size, because that's what I want to be doing now. Forget, again, I put that S in there just to show you that you have to be back in the command. You're out of the command. Then down here I said I want piece space. It's going to tell me I'm already in piece space. Now, once I've done that, I go and I say I want to erase. What do you want to erase? All. And then I go into page setup. Now, I think at this point what I'm going to do is close this, and then I'll start the page setup in a separate command just so it's easier for me to see what's going on. But now you note I am currently in a separate drawing where I don't have B-size set up. None of that is current right now, but that is the drawing I'm in. If I go back to VLISP, go back to VLISP, and I double click right here, I can load just that line. I load it, I go back into the drawing I'm in, and you'll notice here I am, B-size drawing. Oh, I forgot one thing in my LISP program, which is to exit the selection set request. In other words, when you pick things in AutoCAD, you got to tell it when you're done by pressing enter. I have to add that. So that's where I am right here. It's exactly where I was over here before I went through and did a page setup. So now we'll go back to the LISP program, and now I'll go down and say, alright, now we'll do another command. This one is going to be negative page setup, quote. I'll open up my notepad so I know what I'm doing, and you'll see what it does here. When I type that in, it comes in underscore page setup, but the command is page setup, and I'm issuing it right there. This is what it did when I went through the process of taking all my defaults. So when I do page setup, it's saying what's the output name. All I have to do now is come over here and copy that, come over here and paste that, because I don't want to have to retype all these and make a typing error. So I put it in quotes like that. So I'm just going to go down through, I'm going to answer all of these questions. And I can do it all in one line, or I can do it by doing that. So another quote. Again, I just want to come in here and just copy, because I know this is what I want. I just went through and set it up. The point of this is that once I've got this done, I don't need to set these things up anymore. Come down through again. I'm just tabbing over right now. I know I have to indicate that it's inches, so I do that. Quote, paste, close quote. The only reason I'm tabbing is just so I can keep track of what's going on. I don't need to. I could leave it just the way it is. I could, line everything up here. I could have it all on one line. Now we're going to get down here. The next thing I need to know is landscape, quote, paste, close quote. Oop. I highlighted landscape, but apparently oh, yeah, what I did, instead of copying that, I pasted it. It said landscape. And I just made a mistake, and I did a Control V instead of a Control C. So landscape is what I should have put in here. I'll put it here instead, so there's my landscape. Now, and you just have to make sure you have all of these answers in here. Now, you don't have to copy and paste. The word no is probably something you can type in without making a mistake. And here, layout, 1-to-1. I think you're getting the idea. Quote. What's next? 0,0. Well, that's your plot offset. Now, you're going to always put that in there as 0,0. You don't need to have it 0.00. That'll work just fine. And then yes. And then, okay, monochrome CTB. Just go and highlight that like this. Copy it this time. Do that. Do this. And then we have another yes. So this is how you have to do it. You have to go and make sure that you understand how to do this from the command line, and then you can duplicate it here. And that's what I'm wanting you to do. Don't want you to just type it into ChatGTP and have it come up with a bunch of code that you don't understand. Yes, no, no, and no. Okay, so that takes care of that. I'll close this up like so. Now we're going to check and make sure it works. I don't have any typing errors. Now I'm still in the new, not the one I already set up. I'm still in the one, let me just go back to AutoCAD and show you. This is the one that I used to figure out what I needed to know. This is the one where I'm testing the code. So this is the one I want to be active. I go back into VLISP, double click that, and say let's load that. We'll see what happens. Error function canceled. So something is wrong. So what am I going to do now? I'm going to go back to AutoCAD. I'm going to look at the command line. And I'm going to go back up here. Alright, so I've got an error, and here's where the error is. Right there it says inches, unknown command. So I did something wrong right there. So let me go back and look at my... Okay, that's what it said. Oh, so here's the problem I had. I only copied this right here. I did not copy that entire thing, and as a result, it comes up and says we have an unknown command. This is how you troubleshoot these things. And that was just a mistake. I didn't make that on purpose. I'm glad I did, though, because what I needed to copy was this whole thing right there. Whatever it shows inside the carets, including that parenthesis. There we go. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go back to VLISP, and instead of what I put here, I'm going to just do that and then copy that. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to try running it again. So now I double click on this, it goes back to here, and I'm going to say okay, let's see what happens. And you notice when I come back over here now, it did all the things I needed to be done. So I made that mistake, but when you make them, and this happens all the time when you're trying to test code. But you can see now my program at this point will get me to this location. Now if I want to test the whole thing, I can go out here, go back to VLISP, and I can say let's test this whole program, and I can temporarily close the whole thing by doing that. Now if I double click on it, it goes right back to defund. I'm going to load that whole process. I'm going to go out to a brand new drawing. I'm going to type ITB, enter, bingo. It goes through and it does all the things I want it to do. That's how you get yourself set up. Now, once you got yourself set up on this, and this is really pretty straightforward. So I've pretty much solved this whole problem for you. But what I'm doing is to show you how to solve it for yourself. So you're going to have to go back in and use whatever paper size you're using, whatever output device you plan to use. That's how you're going to go about writing this code. Don't just copy down what I did here. That's not going to help you understand this. Go through and make sure you're doing it correctly, and go through and then add to that your title block. Now, in order to figure out how to make your viewport, I'm going to go ahead and insert a title block here that I plan to use. Next to the drawing. This is the one where I set up everything to begin with. So DD insert, browse. Let's take TB inch. Looks like that. Okay, now we're going to bring it in at 0, 0, and if I look at it, I go, well, it's not really a good place for it. So let's just move it so it's centered a little more. So now that I've done that, now I can identify, there's an insertion point on here, and the insertion point's right there. I'm going to use the ID command. I'm going to go here and I'm going to say, okay, that has to go over 0.29 and up nothing. So if we go over, say, 0.3, that would work on this. So now I know that when I insert this, I need to insert it at 0.3, comma 0. So I go back to my LISP program, and right here, now at this point, I'm going to get rid of that because I'm still running this program. So now I'm back in the command function. This time we're going to go and do the insert command. From the command prompt. And then I'll give the name of that, and the name of that block that I created. And I'm going to have to get the location as well. but I need this. And for testing it, I can just copy the name, but I'm going to need to put the actual location in. So I need the name of that. I put in the location. Don't forget, when you do that, you need to have, so this is going to be on, I think, my G drive. And now you have to have a double backslash or a single front slash to go through and have that register. You can't just have a single backslash. So at some point, though, I'm just going to indicate, it's going to ask me where you want to put. I'm going to indicate quote 0.3 comma 0 as my insertion point and have it come in. Now, in order to make, and I'm not solving this whole thing here. I've already done more than I intended to when I made the assignment. But this is what I want you to do. I want you to go through and do it this way so this sets up and you understand what you're doing. Again, the purpose is to understand what you're doing. Now that I've done that, I want to identify these corners right here. I say, you know, I'm going to move that. So when that comes in, that's going to be at 0.3 comma 0. So now if I ID that corner, and then I ID this corner, and then I ID that corner, and this corner, and that corner, and this corner, that information right there, again, it's in the command line, that information right there can be used for my mview command. Now, negative mview doesn't bring anything up. mview is not a dialog box command, so you just have to type mview. Now, what do you want? Polygonal. How are you going to draw it? Well, you 0.30, 0.3 comma 0. That's the first point, and then you just go and add all those points in, and when you're done, you'll now have a viewport that fits inside your title block. Bingo, there's your viewport. So that's all that you need to know in order to make this happen. And do it yourself. I do not want you to give me anything that you cannot explain. Now again, most of you would do this on your own, but some of you did not, and this is my way of saying you can do this. I know you can. I know that programming for some of you is new, seems a little bit confusing, but based on what I just did, you should be able to solve this problem.